A whiteout battlefield where the only sound is the low, hungry growl of tank engines somewhere beyond the fog. Snow drifts over a torn Nazi flag, half buried in the mud like the last breath of a collapsing empire. The camera moves closer, not for drama, but to show the quiet before a storm that history never properly told. A single question cuts through the silence. What if one of the most effective tank units of World War II was one almost no one remembers? The world snaps awake. Tank treads slam against frozen ground. A muzzle flash splits the night. Silhouettes advance through smoke thick enough to chew. There's no glamour here, just precision, grit, and a level of discipline that feels almost surgical. Then everything freezes. A photo fades in, grainy and sun-faded, as if the world tried to file it away in a drawer. Black American soldiers standing beside their tanks, shoulders squared, eyes unblinking. Men who trained harder, fought harder, and carried more weight than anyone ever admitted. They weren't expected to be heroes. In truth, many weren't expected to survive, because the army that needed them never really wanted them. And yet, these were the soldiers who punched holes in Nazi lines that others couldn't break. The ones who kept moving when fuel was low, when ammunition ran dry, when losses piled so high their commanders feared they'd crumble. They didn't, not once. But here's the part that twists the knife. Their achievements didn't vanish by accident. They were buried quietly, systematically, and for decades. So the real question isn't how they fought, it's this. If a battalion could shadow one of the most powerful armies in the world, then how did their own nation manage to make them disappear? America in the early 1940s, sirens, factory smoke, recruitment posters everywhere. Yet beneath the urgency sits a country split down the middle. Young men crowd enlistment lines, hoping to trade fear for purpose. White recruits are rushed into combat training. Black volunteers are steered towards brooms, buckets, and the silent humiliation of being told they're good enough to serve, but not good enough to fight. They hear the same lines on repeat. Not fit for combat, not smart enough, not brave enough. Not evaluations, just excuses. Cut to the south, where the heat clings to everything. Segregated buses rumble down dusty roads. Barracks are divided by color, even as the country insists unity is the only path to victory. The U.S. military, the institution meant to defend freedom, mirrors the very inequality it claims to stand against. Meanwhile, the world burns. Across the Atlantic, Hitler's blitzkrieg swallows cities in weeks. German panzers roll over borders like they made of sand. Armies that once felt secure now collapse under steel and fire. Inside the Pentagon, pressure mounts. The U.S. needs tank crews desperately. But behind closed doors, the decision-makers murmur the same refrain. Yes, we need tanks, but not them. And yet, something stirs in the men who've been sidelined. It's not rage, not yet. It's a quiet, sharpened resolve. A sense of being pushed so far down that the only direction left is forward. The question they whisper to themselves isn't rebellious. It's logical, almost painfully simple. If this is our country, why aren't we allowed to defend it? They don't know it, but the pressure is reaching its limit. Systems don't bend forever. People don't swallow injustice forever. And in the months ahead, something the U.S. Army never expected is about to break. Imagine a training field so quiet you can hear the dust settling on steel. Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, heat pressing down like a weight. Hundreds of black recruits standing in formation, staring at tanks no one else wanted. Outdated, temperamental, leftovers from other units. Then a figure steps forward, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Bates. A white officer, but one of the rare few who sees more than skin. He doesn't give a speech, he gives a promise. We are the 761st, and we will not be underestimated. Training hits 'em like a storm. Mornings blur into nights, sweat turns to mud, muscles tear and rebuild. Every mistake becomes fuel. They grow sharper, faster, more coordinated than anyone predicted. One soldier writes home with a line that spreads through the barracks like a spark. They want us to fail, so we'll become the unit that can't. Then they first live fire drill. The shell leaves the barrel with a thunderclap that shakes the air around them, lighting their faces with something new, certainty. But even in that moment, a question hangs over the field like smoke. Will the army even let them fight? Time answers with silence. White units deploy overseas. The 761st stays stuck in limbo, training, polishing, waiting. Rumors crawl through the camp. Slurs and reports talk of disbanding them quietly. Soldiers built for war reduced to shining boots and scrubbing floors. Frustration turns into a physical thing. One soldier slams his fist into a wall until blood streaks the plaster. They mutters, they sending boys to Europe while soldiers rot here. Then everything shifts. General George S. Patton, the man known for his ego, his fury, his impossible standards, arrives to review them. He walks the line without blinking. No praise, no insults, just judgment. He turns back, voice sharp as a blade. I don't care what color you are. I care if you can kill Germans. A beat, and I think you can. The cheers are quiet, respectful discipline, but behind them burns a fire that months of rejection couldn't extinguish. Still, another question forms in the back of their minds. If Patton sees their worth, why do so many still refuse to? Europe provides the answer. Winter, 1944, snow falling like ash. The 761st is finally unleashed in the chaos of the Battle of the Bulge. They tanks tear through frozen forests. They break ambushes before they foam. They pull wounded infantry out of places no one else can reach. Every mile they gain is earned with grit and precision. But the cost is savage. Enemy shells rip through armor. Crews are trapped in burning turrets. Bodies vanish beneath snowdrifts marked only by helmets. A chaplain kneels beside a fallen tanker and whispers the line no one wants to hear. He fought for a country that wouldn't fight for him. Weeks grind on without rest. Fuel dwindles, ammunition thins. Even the strongest begin to sag under the weight of non-stop combat. And as they tanks sputter on fumes and the enemy presses harder, a new fear creeps in, sharper than gunfire. Was this the moment everything they built finally collapsed? Imagine a town swallowed by winter, every window dark, every corner wide for death. Nazi panzers sit hidden behind stone walls, engines cold, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It's the kind of place commanders avoid unless they have no other choice. The 761st gets the order no unit wants. Break through or the entire line collapses. Inside the tanks, silence tightens like a fist. Frost creeps across the glass. You can almost hear their heartbeat over the engine hum. They commander keys the radio, voice steady. Let's go, show them what black men can do. Then everything erupts. The first shell hits with a flash that wipes out the horizon. Smoke floods the streets. Machine gun fire ricochets off stone. An American tank flips into flame as if ripped open by an invisible hand. One 761st crew loses their turret, jammed, useless, so they push forward anyway, driving straight into enemy fire to clear a path. Another tank spots a German Panther blocking the advance. Instead of retreating, the driver slams the throttle and rams it head-on, metal shrieking against metal.
A third unit swings wide, knocking down a wall to rescue an infantry squad trapped under a web of machine gun nests. Every second costs something. Every yard feels stolen. But by late afternoon, the gunfire fades. The panzers burn, and the German lines, once immovable, collapse under the weight of a battalion they were never warned about. The battlefield settles into a heavy quiet. The 761st stands victorious, armor scarred, faces streaked with soot, bodies shaken from adrenaline and loss. Patton's message arrives, clipped and cold in the radio static. They fought bravely. You can tell 'em I'm damn proud. The words hang in the air, but no one cheers. They look at the ruins, the bodies, the smoke drifting like ghosts. They know what it took to win today, what it took from 'em. And one thought settles in, quieter than the wind moving through shattered streets. Would their own country ever recognize what they'd done? Imagine the guns finally falling silent. Europe breathes again, cities rebuild, and in scattered towns across the continent, people remember the tanks with the Black Panther painted on the side, the unit that arrived in the darkest hours and didn't back away. But across the ocean, the welcome is different. There are no parades waiting at American docks, no cheering crowds, no front-page stories celebrating what the 761st crushed, endured, or won. Many return home still wearing the uniforms they bled in, only to pass signs that say whites only. Some are turned away from restaurants. A few are attacked, punished for the audacity of serving their country too well. The war moves into textbooks, but they chapter don't. Time keeps rolling. Documents get boxed up, shoved into basements, or simply thrown away. Names drift out of memory, one by one. Yet the survivors refuse to let the story die. They tell it at dinner tables, leaning close so their children can feel the weight behind each word. They share it in VFW halls, where old hands tremble but voices stay firm. They tell it in living rooms, surrounded by kids sitting cross-legged on the carpet, eyes wide as they hear about frozen forests, burning tanks, and the strength it took to move forward anyway. They don't tell it for glory. They tell it because truth needs witnesses. They speak of courage that never got its uniform patch, a sacrifice that never got a medal, of men whose skin was scorched by tank engines and by something colder. And then the question comes, not loud, not angry, but soft enough to sting. Did humanity really learn when even its heroes were forgotten?
Imagine boxes of old records being opened for the first time in decades, dust rising, pages brittle, ink fading. Inside those forgotten files, historians uncover evidence of a battalion far more effective, far more relentless than the country ever admitted. The truth doesn't creep back into daylight, it surges. Suddenly the story spreads. Documentaries bring their battles to life frame by frame. Teachers rewrite their lessons to include the men who are left out. Medals arrive in ceremonies where sons and daughters stand in place of fathers who never lived to receive them. Piece by piece, the world finally sees what these soldiers were. The screen holds a restored photograph, sharper now, colors balanced, faces clear. Men stand as straight beside their tanks, not as footnotes, but as giants. The 761st didn't just crush Nazi forces, the narrator says, each word deliberate. The image lingers, then fades into black. They crushed the walls built around them. Silence, one breath. A final line that lands like a warning and a reminder. And maybe we still haven't learned. Another beat, quiet but heavy enough to stay with the viewer long after the credits. Shared a story.